we can make this the headline of the article. An absolute joy to be strangled by Nick Cage.
Hi, welcome to Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table with the cast and crew of Renfield.
Mr. Renfield, welcome. I am Dracula. You will make a very good assistant.
No! He's evil. We will protect you!
You have the word of the most trusted institution on earth, the Catholic Church.
The premise of Renfield is a movie. It's about codependency. It's about a codependent relationship with a boss from hell, as played by Nicolas Cage. And it's the story of a guy who has to kind of stand up to his boss and take his power back.
I wanted to try and find a new way into a Dracula story. I think there had been thousands of different Draculas in thousands of different ways, and I wanted to find something that gave it kind of a new and fresh angle. And looking at it through the lens of Renfield, I think gave it a real human touch and allowed you to come at it from a human perspective, and it gave you a new light in the way that you would look at Dracula through Renfield's eyes, and it really gave you this this real codependent hook to the relationship that I thought was kind of a really cool angle to explore.
I play Count Dracula, and what I loved about this version of the Renfield-Dracula relationship is that it's a combination of horror and comedy. Which is one of my favorite tones to hit. I remember when I would see American Werewolf in London, the Landis picture in the cinema, that fantastic feeling I had. Well, I didn't know when I was laughing if it was okay to laugh, and then I'm screaming and I'm laughing again. It really kind of slapped you around. And I think that's a tone that director Chris McKay and I were trying to go for with Nick Hoult. We were finding this balance, and it's a fine balance to hit, but thankfully Chris really kept us on point.
I play Renfield, who is Dracula's familiar, his servant. And in this story, it's kind of 100 years on, I guess, from when their relationship originated and developed, and the one that you know from previous films and the novel. So this was kind of an original twist on their dynamic and relationship, and a new look at Renfield. You know, what becomes of that man after 90 years of servitude and looking after Dracula and breaking down himself in order to keep his master happy.
I play Teddy Lobo. I believe my first name is Tedward, right?
Yes.
Robert pitched a lot of different names, both of you guys. It was Tedward, Edward, Teddy. So Tedward, Teddy Lobo. I play the son of a very big crime syndicate, and basically I think he kind of does everything in his life he does to try to impress his friends and his mommy. And that includes killing people and doing a outrageous amount of cocaine, and then trying to take over this city, which is interrupted by Nick Holt's Renfield. But he's not a good person.
Awkwafina plays Rebecca. She's a police officer whose father was killed by the Lobo family, and she's the person that inspires Renfield to stand up because she doesn't, take from anybody.
Renfield, your sole purpose in life is to serve me. Now, let's eat.
I just want a normal life again.
I love the Universal monsters, and I've been working with Universal on some things, and I really wanted to kind of get in there and be a part of that world. And so I talked to them a little bit about the possibility of doing something with Renfield, and then I wrote this treatment, and they seemed to like it. It was pretty cool. It kind of started moving at a pretty quick pace, especially for movies. From there, we brought in Ryan Ridley, who's the absolutely brilliant writer that took my nonsensical, useless treatment and turned it into something of beauty. Once Ryan wrote this amazing script, it was very easy to entice the esteemed Mr. Christopher McKay to the film, and then things started rolling. I think, then we started casting. It's so intimidating sitting next to you, having you stare at. Oh my Lord!
Because I played your Dracula, that's why.
Yes.
I prepared the role, first starting point was just looking at my favorite Dracula performances. Because the Dracula character has been done many times, and the lion's share of the times the character has been done poorly, but there have been some real gems. Christopher Lee, Frank Langella, Bela Lugosi, Gary Oldman. That was really just a starting point. I adored the look of Christopher Lee. He was really my Dracula. I grew up watching the Hammer pictures. With Chris McKay, we designed a look that sort of homaged Lee's 60s Dracula. But that was the starting point. I think the two biggest inspirations for this Dracula were, first and foremost, August Coppola, my father, because he always spoke with great eloquence. He was always the smartest man of any room he walked in, and he made sure we knew it and he knew it. And then Anne Bancroft, believe it or not, as Mrs. Robinson. I thought her relationship with Dustin Hoffman's character was a terrific model for Dracula. From there, it became working off Nick Hoult's incredible, impeccable comedic timing, switching on a dime and being deeply vulnerable. And then I thought, okay, I can do that with the Dracula character. So I'm supporting Nick, so I'm trying to fit in he's setting the pace.
I just tried not to mess it up most days. Firstly, spending a lot of time with Chris, discussing it and working them through the script and the scenes and figuring out the really key scenes are between Renfield and Dracula. That's where we learn a lot about their relationship, what he's trying to escape and where he's going. So zoning in on those and us working together, even in the camera tests, kind of working without dialogue too much then, but just the physicality of how these characters interact with each other, revisiting previous performances, trying to pepper in things from kind of Dwight Fry's and using his iconic laugh. So paying homage to what's come before, but then also Renfield in this story is very much someone who's lost himself, so then trying to find those sparks of rediscovery and bring this character back to life in a fresh, different way. And then Ryan's script was so smart and funny, and Chris had such a brilliant take on it that then it was just being playful and playing the truth in the moments, I think, because then you can jump between the horror and the drama and the comedy as long as you're honest and truthful to the emotion of the characters.
I mean, these guys brought so many layers, to the table. Obviously, there's, the stuff we do in the past when you see them together and we composite them into the Todd Browning movie. But when you see how Dracula manipulates Renfield, there's so much going on there. You see how much, clearly that he's gaslighting Renfield. What Nick Cage does in that moment is you actually see how much he really truly loves Renfield. You see it, you see it in his eyes, and he's tearing up while he's saying, "You're my best friend. I'm the only person who's going to take care of you." It's really emotional, and in order for the comedy to work, for me, you actually have to kind of ground it in stuff. You have to ground it in something that's real emotions, real stakes. I like real practical effects and things like that. So all that stuff is meant to sort of help the audience be able to just care about these people, so that when they are, in conflict with each other, you actually can laugh because of the predicaments they're in or because of their idiosyncratic stuff. And these guys created real relationships, like on set, like real honest performances. They were unafraid to just try things and be, and had such great ideas that they brought to the table. Every day, these guys had so much input into the movie and into these characters. It just really it made my job so much easier, and I was really appreciative. And Ben brought so much humor to something where there wasn't a lot of humor necessarily on the page, but Ben really brought a lot of fun and joy. I think all of these guys brought a lot of joy to the set. Nick Cage's enthusiasm for film and filmmaking and his cinephile's knowledge of movies is just a real pleasure, to be around.
But one of my favorite scenes in the movie is the studio apartment scene. I was always deferring to Chris and his vision because he was really looking for something, and he would sculpt and find it. And there was one line I never wanted to say where I say, "What is this?" And then he says, "Studio apartment." I go, "Studio apartment." I was like, "Well, I don't want to say Dracula." I wouldn't say it. Nick, you got to say it. And Chris would say, "You got to say it." And I saw the movie and I was like, wow, I'm so glad that I listened to our director. That brought so much humor to it. He was on point with everything. He was really surgical about it, finding the right tone. Yes, there's pathos, and as he says, menace, but finding the humor within that, There's some moments in the movie that are genuinely creepy and funny fused at the same time, and I'm very happy about that. I think that's quite fresh.
And trying to flow back and forth. I mean, you want to be able to flow back and forth between the humor and stuff like that, and surprise people with that kind of thing. That's what's fun about making movies like this, and hopefully, we did a good job to be able to be something like the movies that we love, the Shaun of the Dead or the Evil Dead 2s and that sort of thing. I mean, that's the stuff that we, American Werewolf, like Nick said, like those are movies that, inspired me to want to make movies and that kind of thing. So I want to try to honor that as much as humanly possible.
Let me explain. I work for Dracula.
Count Dracula? It's the real Dracula!
Some call me the Dark One, others the Lord of Death.
So you bring him people to eat?
Well, I do other stuff.
Like what? Wash his cape?
No, The cape is dry clean only, strictly.
Yeah, I'm aware of this. This fly, yeah.
We can make this the headline of the article. An absolute joy to be strangled by Nick Cage. But it's so fun because he's dressed as Dracula and Nick goes 110% into whatever role he is. So it was like so little acting and just responding to what's in front of you. We have this incredible set design. We have Nick dressed up as Dracula. We got to play with all sorts of stuff. Push the comedy a little bit, push the fear a little bit, and then we kind of do exactly what all these guys are saying, where you kind of find that level. It's so fun to be in a practical world and play with practical things and given the breath to find new moments within the script and stuff like that. It was awesome.
And the ending beat of that scene is something that these two guys just did on set, where he starts laughing and then he says, "Are you laughing? You laughing? You're gonna fuck me up?" And yeah, I mean, just stuff like that. You know, like having a nice button on the scene.
That came from. See, this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes things just sort of walk in from the imagination and recall. I remember John Voight in Runaway Train. He finally gets out of prison. He puts his hand on the other actor. He goes, "I'm free." And I just, I'm going to bring John Boyd into this one.
It was great. That was great. That laugh moment was great.
But that was totally Boyd.
Oh, I love it.
Which is interesting. I didn't know I was going to go there. But that's what he cultivated, Chris McKay. He cultivated a set where you could feel free enough as actors, as film performers, that we could find things and play with it. He's not going to shut you down. Many directors cave you in. He lets you blossom, which is a romantic way of saying it's fun to be working for Chris McKay.
It was also about paying homage to those old movies because we love them so much. With Jamie Price, the visual effects supervisor, who put that together, was also the second unit director. He came in and he understood, you have to go deep. You have to figure out the lens dynamics and you have to figure out the lighting and everything to try to match that stuff so it feels like it's literally Nick Cage on the staircase and Nick Hoult with doffing his cap and the bottom of the stairs and reacting. What I think we didn't want to do, and guys correct me if I'm wrong, but what we didn't want to do is necessarily try to 100% mimic those performances, but put our characters in the movie.
It was a bit like ping pong because of what would happen in terms of the tech. They would play a bit of Dwight Fry and then Hoult would ping pong back and get the move and the voice with his own spin. Same with Lugosi. So it was like ping pong, back and forth, play, action, and that was new. I had never done that before.
It was fun seeing like the world that Chris had built. Lately, most movies have been kind of looking the same, and he had lighting ideas where things, you didn't necessarily have to have everything in true colors. This room could just be green because I think that would look cool, and I think it made for things to have a mood and a feeling that even just on set, when you're not seeing it filmed and you're not seeing it all polished up, it had this real unique vibe to it that really just made me think, oh, we're doing something special here. This is something exciting. It was really cool.
There were, I think, 4 different looks, but the first look was 8 hours in the chair. It was literally 20 pounds of makeup, the body as well as the face. But the good news for me on that, and I always wanted to have that experience because I'm such a fan of Lon Chaney Sr. and what he did. The good news for me on that was they still managed to let the eyes communicate. I remember talking with Chris McKay about it. It was like, I just want to make sure the emotion still comes through. Don't do the contact so much so that even though I'm under all this, you still feel the emotional content.
Chris was intent on us performing as many of the stunts as possible ourselves.
And I was lucky that these guys wanted to do that, to be clear.
So we did have a lot of time to prep, and Chris Brewster, our stunt coordinator and designer, was fantastic in terms of getting us into the prep room and like going through our fight sequences, giving our characters individual styles of movement and fighting, and then developing these very original, different routines, I feel. Yeah. The sequences were things that you'd never expect to be doing, ripping people's arms off and then using them as weapons against them and stuff, and punching heads off.
A lot of thought went into the moves of Dracula. Dracula's very elegant when he's the Count, but when he's the demon and it comes out, he's like top predator animality, cobras and big cats. So we spent a lot of time together designing as if I had panther-like claws, and then literally like hissing into the camera like a cobra on attack and integrating all that into the dance, if you will.
One of my favorite shots is when Nick Cage is, in the very beginning of the movie, is throwing guys around and climbing up the walls and stuff like that. He cuts a guy's throat out and tosses him on the ground towards where the priest is, and the camera finds the priest who's doing something we don't know what yet. And then Cage turns around into camera and just it becomes an animal, and you just see the animalistic side of Dracula. And I just that shot is something I really love. It just looks like this feral thing, and that was like a dream come true.
I loved it too, and we designed that together right off the get-go. Even before we had fully committed, we just started playing around, and he had his camera, and I would be coming into the lens of his camera right there and trying to be almost like the shark in Jaws, like what can you do as a film performer, not as a animatronic. And we both just went, wow, yeah, that's it. And that's really one of the big reasons why I wanted to make the movie.
You're never really going to be free until you face him.
I will no longer tolerate abuse. I deserve happiness.
Let me explain something to you, okay? You deserve only suffering. I will unleash an army of death. Everyone you care about will suffer because you betrayed me.
He went hardcore because he ate the potato bug. And
you ate the
muscle in
potato
my
bug too,
body
right?
tells me
I
to eat
unfortunately ate a potato bug.
Yeah, the potato bugs were not good.
I didn't need to. I wasn't on camera. I didn't need to eat a potato bug, but I did.
It's like an oversized ant. It's just horrendous.
It tastes like what you'd expect an insect to taste like. I
Wait, you guys
suppose.
both ate a potato bug?
I never would eat a potato bug.
You did.
Don't look at me,
The
man.
best things we ate were the crickets.
Yeah.
The crickets were like smoky bacon flavor and salt and vinegar, which I love salt and vinegar, so I was happy about eating the crickets. I ate lots of those, and that was fine. The props team were amazing. They made caramel cockroaches for me, so I got to eat those, which were delicious. And also, like the worms were just gummy worms in crushed up Oreos to make it look like dirt. So,
Oh my God.
So those. Yeah.
So much sugar for you.
If we
I
could
know,
get
I was
over our
bouncing off the
phobia of
walls.
eating insects, you could solve world starvation because it's high protein, no fat, extreme nutrients, and they're just abundant. They're everywhere. But no, we're not going to do
This
that.
is what we were saying, that we're going to start off our own insect nutrition line.
The Paul Newman salad except bugs.
Yeah.
For charity.
The two Nicks. We'll be dressed up as potato bugs on the
Yeah.
packaging.
Chris McKay made me eat a ferret in front of everybody.
Like Ozzy Osbourne, he bit the head off a
It
bat.
was, and I didn't want to, but you're like, this will help you get in character. So in front of the entire crew, I ate a
Trust me,
ferret.
it'll help.
And like Tom and Jerry, like I put it in my mouth and it came out, it was all bones. And then I went like that, and then we were allowed to keep acting. I think it helped my character quite a bit.
We have to stop him before sunset.
I am enough. I deserve happiness, and I take full charge of my...
I love Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. I think that's a spectacular movie.
I loved Coppola's movie. I thought every frame was a work of art. Just a beautiful film, and Gary was brilliant in it.
Because I've been watching it again recently, Shadow of the Vampire. I love movies about movies being made, particularly when they're kind of comedic like that, and I thought that was a great film.
But Orlok is Orlok, and that would be my favorite vampire film, Nosferatu.
Yeah, you saw that when, how old were you?
5. My father. Again, this is what happens
Could you
when
imagine?
you're being raised by a literature professor. He's screening Nosferatu and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari on alternating days, and it's going into my psyche, and I'm going to bed, and I'm having nightmares. Of course I had to make this movie, and of course I had to make vampires.
Wow.
But I saw one image of that when I was a kid, like in some sort of compilation. I couldn't imagine, like, and that scared the shit out of me.
Oh, hell yeah.
Like that, that's
It's still the scariest
Yeah. It's
It's
vampire.
very scary.
Let the Right One In is one of my favorite vampire movies.
Leslie Nielsen, Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Peter McNichol as Renfield.
Oh yeah, Mel Brooks. I watched a Mel Brooks movie 1,000 times.
I do love The Wolfman, but I kind of feel like I did a version of that with Ghost Rider.
He's such a
fighting the
sympathetic
play.
character.
Yeah, and sympathetic.
I want to do a buddy cop comedy with Frankenstein. I want to do 48 Hours with Frankenstein.
Is he the Nick Nolte part or is he the Eddie Murphy part?
You're gonna have to watch the movie to find out.
My universal monster of choice would be Vin Diesel's Dominic Toretto. It counts. I want to see him and Renfield in a fist fight, and I want Vin Diesel to
His
fist
character in
fight
Fast
him
and the Furious?
with a car. Yeah.
It's interesting because he would say it's about family, and that's obviously a triggering thing for Renfield.
Yeah, that'd be a
It's a
Because
real.
he
real knife
abandoned
turn
his
for you.
family, so he regrets that. And so when he would say it's about family, I would eat a bug and go crazy.
That'd probably be a
This
crime
movie
that made
writes itself.
Frankenstein have to solve, huh? Probably.
I am Dracula.
Okay, obviously we're dealing with a little bit more than just narcissism here.
Thanks for watching Entertainment Weekly's Around the Table with the cast and crew of Renfield. Please check out the movie on April 14th.